Reversing narcissistic abuse. Don't just reverse the narcissistic abuse trauma. Reverse the narcissistic devaluation programming, because you have value simply because you exist, no matter who you are. Today we are going to talk about, is borderline personality disorder just another form of narcissism? What is the difference between BPD and NPD, and why it matters? Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is Mike. This is the Reversing Narcissistic Abuse channel. So I've talked about this many times. This channel has been on the air. This channel has been on YouTube. I just outed myself as to how old I am. This channel has been on YouTube for a few years now, and it doesn't matter how much I say this, new people are showing up, and I probably get this comment on this channel at least, I don't know, perhaps once a month or more sometimes. And the comment will go something like this: you're conflating BPD with NPD. I wish people wouldn't conflate BPD with NPD. Or perhaps what you're talking about is BPD comorbid NPD. Borderlines have empathy. Narcissists do not. Now, the majority of these comments come from borderlines. So let me be clear. The point of this channel, everybody, of course, is welcome to come here. There's nothing I can do to stop you, even if, if you didn't want to come here. If it's a public channel on YouTube, anybody can come here. So you're all welcome, and I hope that what I do on this channel is helpful to anybody and everybody. But I'm specifically focusing this channel on non-disordered people who have been in or are currently in romantic relationships with somebody suffering from BPD and or NPD. And my hope is to educate only, to give you the inspiration to go do the work to be healthy, to get healed. And people who are non-disordered, who have been severely damaged by these kinds of relationships, you can completely recover and heal from them. Now, having said that, the focus of this channel is not for borderlines. Narcissists don't go around looking for healing, so it's very unlikely that they're going to come here to learn about themselves. But I've come to find out over the years that borderlines come onto the channel for whatever reason. I don't know. I can guess, but that's not what this channel is for. So I just want to say to you, without any malice or any anger, every time a borderline comes on here and drops a comment like that, you're conflating BPD with NPD. Borderlines have empathy. Whenever you make one of the most recent ones, borderlines need love too. Whenever you drop a comment like that, and those are the kind ones. Those aren't the ones who are coming after me, calling me names, completely, totally attacking my character while simultaneously accusing me of stigmatizing them. Every time you come on with any one of these comments, you are being hurtful. You are showing a complete lack of empathy for the people that are here. It shows that you haven't put any effort into understanding what the effects of this horrific personality disorder, what it does to non-disordered partners. When you make the argument about yourself, you are proving that at the very least there are times when you operate without any empathy for other people. I don't go on to channels that are for healing borderlines, and when they say something inaccurate or hurtful or stigmatizing, I don't go on there and correct them, because it's none of my business. You do whatever you need to do to heal. And it's okay with me that people have feelings and people generalize or are inaccurate, and everybody has their process to get there. So I'm not going to go and criticize you for doing something that I think is inaccurate. On my channel, I'm going to say whatever the hell I want. You don't have to like it. So you're welcome here. But if you come on here and if you are a borderline and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is anything other than, I am so sorry that you and people on this channel have been hurt. I know that I can be hurtful in my behavior. If that isn't the first line that comes out of your mouth because of what the purpose of this channel is, then you are proving that you, in that moment, don't have any empathy. You're making it about yourself, and it's abusive and hurtful. So I just need to get that out there. And if you're if you're a BPD and you're looking to recover, then part of your recovery, if not a huge amount of it, is to understand the effect of your behavior on other people. Because borderlines, untreated borderlines, by definition, don't know. We're not talking about when they go into fits of guilt and they beat themselves up. That is not awareness. That is internalized rage. That's the rage you have at other people for catching you in it or pointing it out to you or making you feel bad or whatever. That's rage at them that you're internalizing on yourself. True awareness is knowing and not attacking other people for your behavior. All right, having said that, let's get into this. So the first thing I want to do is, of course, we are going to answer these questions, but the first thing I want to do is, can borderline personality disorder be cured? So my first response to that is anything is possible. I say that because according to the current science of psychology, I say science in quotes, the current science of psychology says that there is no cure for these kinds of personality disorders. My experience has been so far that there isn't a cure, that people who truly suffer from this extremely horrific personality disorder, and I say horrific in the sense of for them, I feel tremendous empathy for them, and I feel pity and sadness that anybody goes through that. So it's horrific what they go through. But so far, my experience so far in this three-dimensional world we have is that there isn't a cure, that they live with those impulses their entire life. But having said that, I've gone through some pretty massive changes in myself over the past couple of years, which I talk about on my other channel, which is the Thunder Wizard channel. If you want to go check that out, we do meditations and things on there, which are absolutely, completely transformative. In fact, we have one coming up today, and we do it that's not the one I want. We do it every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So all of you are welcome, no matter who you are. So I'm open to the possibility of people being cured of anything. However, my experience so far is that no, they can't get cured, but that doesn't mean that they can't achieve recovery and have healthy, happy lives. All right, so where were we? We are here. So can borderline personality disorder be cured? Anything is possible. Can you get your borderline into therapy? Yeah, you could. Is it going to work? I can't say that it's impossible that it'll work. I can think of at least one example that I looked into. I didn't prove it for myself, but I researched it online, and at least for a certain time period up until the end of that information that was made available, it looked like somebody was able to get into therapy while being in a romantic relationship, and they were able to turn things around and have a healthy relationship. Now, here's the big difference though. That person their partner didn't get them into therapy. They self-initiated their own therapy, and they didn't do it just to save the relationship. They did it because they knew if they didn't, they would be miserable and unhappy, as well as they knew that they were making other people unhappy. So their desire to be happy and their willingness to do whatever the hell it took to heal and whatever the hell it took to have a healthy relationship, that's why they got into therapy. So if you think that you're going to get your borderline into therapy and that it's going to give you a happy day ever after, I'm here to tell you that it's virtually impossible. And there are a few reasons for that. One is, if you get them into therapy, they're doing it out of guilt, or they're doing it in a codependent way to please you, or worse yet, they're doing it to pacify you so that they can continue to abuse you and objectify you. Borderlines are notorious for their inability to stick with therapy because they can't tolerate looking at themselves. It's too painful. Narcissists are also notorious for that as well. They can't tolerate looking at themselves, and there's a reason for that. The reason is that the nature of their internalized trauma as infants is so horrific that even to begin to feel that pain feels like it's killing them. So they're literally doing everything they possibly can to avoid their own feelings from killing them. So it's really challenging. You got to have you got to have a big pair to be able to sit with yourself and look at yourself and not seek to react and defend yourself. So it's virtually impossible that you as the partner are going to be able to get them to go to therapy. And like I thought when I was with my borderline ex, I thought if I could just get her into the room with the therapist would say magical things of, this happened to you when you were a kid, and that's why you act this way, and that she would go, oh my God, finally I realize, and I love him, and I don't want to hurt him, and I want to be happy, and we'd be happy ever after. It just doesn't work like that. What ends up happening is that if you get them into therapy, they're doing it most likely for the wrong reasons. They're usually not doing it because they're thoroughly motivated for their own happiness and their own well-being. And they will, guaranteed, they will resent you if they don't already resent you walking in the door. They will resent you for it, and they will take it out on you. And it will most likely end up with the relationship ending even sooner because you got them into therapy. So that's your codependent delusion that you can save them and that you have the power to get them to do what you want. It's your lunacy. So can you get your borderline into therapy? No. Can borderlines achieve recovery? Yes. As I said, they can achieve a state of recovery, and perhaps, with really deep transformation, maybe they can cure themselves. I think that we as a species are going into a state of spiritual transformation where we have the ability to completely change our identity, which is what this is. Borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder are disorders of identity. And so to be able to heal and create an identity up until now has been impossible. But I do think that it is very possible going forward with the spiritual transformation that I believe is coming over the earth as we speak. So can borderlines achieve recovery? Yes. Can borderlines find healthy relationships? Yes. But again, they're going to have to get to the point in their therapeutic recovery, which will take years, dedicated, committed, disciplined action in their recovery, and to be able to tolerate their own internal responses and be able to have the strength of will to act in ways that are contrary to their impulses and their feelings. This is, by the way, borderlines. This is the biggest problem. This is the same problem with alcoholics, drug addicts, and even your codependent lovers. is the inability to take actions that are contrary to your impulses. I mean, it's that simple. But that takes maturity, and that takes a lot of work. And what we're talking about here is a level of infantile immaturity. I know that sounds like a put down. Those are the terms that most accurately describe it. These are people who have been arrested in their personality development. The word arrested development, I believe that's where it comes from. It's been arrested. The abuse and the trauma that they experienced as infants stopped them, as well as the fact that you need to have a healthy mother to tease out the emotions and allow you to have them and give you that whole ability to self-regulate and to self-accept and to self-love. And then you have a healthy internal reality that isn't dependent upon the external reality. Borderlines don't have that because, number one, they were traumatized, and number two, they didn't have loving parents that gave them what they needed so that they could individuate. And that has to do with maturity. So people who are mature have the ability to understand and tolerate their own internal feelings and impulses while simultaneously knowing what is appropriate and healthy for the other person. We're going to talk about empathy later, but that's true empathy. Empathy isn't a feeling. It is a conscious understanding combined with your behavior. Anything other than that is a superficial, childish definition of empathy, and I know that most psychologists and psychiatrists define it that way. You know, I'm here to tell you that the vast majority of psychologists and psychiatrists don't have the first clue what they're doing, and many of them are the most screwed up people I've ever seen. So take that for what it is. That's just a fact. Like it or don't like it, that's not my problem. So let's see, where were we? So can borderlines find healthy relationships? Yes, after 8 to 10 years of dedicated therapy, that is a very possible thing. It's also possible to accomplish it within a relationship, but again, the dynamic is so unique and so, the likelihood, the percentage of anybody, not just borderlines, but anybody who has the ability to currently be in a relationship and be so focused on their own empowerment that they're going to take actions and act in loving ways. It would have to take virtually 100% of their focus and their energy to be able to accomplish that. The other thing I didn't tell you is that if you get your borderline into therapy, what is going to happen, first off, it's not going to work. I'm just telling you right now, he or she's not going to say it. By the way, I use the word she when I talk about borderlines. That doesn't mean that there isn't, an equal possibility that a person could be borderline and be male. It has nothing to do with gender or sexuality. I just use the word she because that's easier for me to do, and I'll explain why later. Don't get your panties in a bunch. All right? It's just a pronoun. Get over it. The individual, he or she, them, it, they. I'm going to use the word she, and I'll explain why. You don't have to like that either. But it's not about saying that only women are borderlines. So let's see. So what I was going to say is if you get your borderline into therapy, as I said, it's not going to work. She's going to resent you once she finds out whatever. The first moment that somebody puts up a mirror towards her, it's going to be so revolting, she's going to bolt, and she's going to probably leave the relationship as a result. So it's not going to work out the way you think. I know because I felt the same way you did, and it had the opposite effect. But the other thing is, even if I give her the benefit of the doubt and somehow she has this magical awakening, she goes, oh my God, I really want to be healthy and I really want to be a better partner and I really want to be happy and I'm going to completely focus on, no matter how difficult it is, to look at myself, and I'm going to do whatever work is necessary to change. If that happens, because I know that's what you want to have happen, if that happens, here's what's going to result from that. She's going to find out really quick that you're codependent. she's going to find out really quick that you have your own non-disordered narcissism, your selfishness. She's going to find out really quick that you are objectifying her, that you are using her in your own codependent narcissistic fantasy, and she's going to find out really quick that this isn't healthy for her, and she's going to dump you. So if you think getting her into therapy is going to do anything other than destroy your codependent connection with her, I'm here to tell you it's not. So, for those of you, you're in a relationship, can you get her into therapy? The answer is no. It's not going to work. Borderlines must want to heal for themselves. Okay, so here is what works. This is in my research, my observation. I don't have BPD. I haven't done tons of research on it. I've had enough interaction with borderlines to know that borderlines can be in therapy and still be completely screwed up and destructive and narcissistic, and they can have been in therapy their whole lives and still be complete, total monsters. So just because you're in therapy doesn't mean anything, any more than sitting in a gym and smoking a cigarette is going to make you Mr. Olympia. So, and also there's listen, therapy is not even a science. It's, there's just, the most of it is people bumbling around, as is indicated by every year they come out with a new book and new definitions for things and blah, blah, blah. So every time somebody comes to me and says, the DSM says this, you're wrong about that, I could care less. I have my experience, and I have my direct experience, not only as a partner, but as an observer. And a lot of therapists don't have that. I can remember watching one video, and there was these two therapists, and they were talking about borderlines. And they were talking hypothetically. So they didn't have personal experience. But they knew, as anybody does, what causes BPD, which is tremendous, horrific, abusive neglect and experience as an infant, which is horrific and horrible. How can you hear that and not have just heartbreaking empathy for that? So they had that because they'd read about it, and they knew in the literature what causes it. They knew that borderlines respond out of fear of being rejected, fear of being consumed. And so in their hubris, they started hypothetically talking about, if I was in a relationship with a borderline, I would just know that when they act out in these negative ways, that it wasn't personal and I would just love them. As though all of us who have been in relationships with borderlines haven't done that. Like we were too stupid to figure that out. And they're sitting there on their white horses in their fantasy world, telling us if only we just knew that, then we wouldn't be stigmatizing and hurting these poor borderlines. Well, my response is, please, by all means, get in a relationship with an untreated borderline and tell me how that strategy works for you. And then get back to us. This channel is filled with people. All you have to do is look at the comments. And yeah, we've got a lot of untreated codependents, a lot of people who mistake this and that. But the one thing that is clear is that they're in a tremendous amount of pain. They're in a tremendous amount of cognitive dissonance. And they are horrifically damaged. So to minimize the effect that borderlines have on their partners, at the very least, is the height of ignorance. Let us continue. All right, so borderlines must want to heal for themselves. And here's what I've found works. Regular DBT therapy, regular DBT group therapy, and daily DBT workbook exercises. So that's what I've seen, and I believe that works because I know from personal experience and in other situations, any kind of therapy that doesn't involve a plan of action is a waste of time. Just going and sitting in your therapist's office and indulging in your feelings and understanding your feelings isn't going to do anything. My borderline ex, when I was with her, one of the things that confused me was I was under the false assumption that if somebody was aware of what their feelings were and why they were doing what they were doing, and if they were aware of how it was harming the other person, my assumption was that was all that was necessary. So I had a strategy with girlfriends, which was I would want to sit them down and talk with them and help them understand. And if they could understand why they did what they did and how it affected me, and hear my feelings and have their own feelings and become conscious of it, my assumption was then they would then begin to act differently. And that's a false assumption. Borderlines are incredibly self-aware of their emotions. They're deeply self-aware. In fact, they can sit you down and they can go so deep within themselves that, deeper than the average person who doesn't have these kinds of destructive experiences. Not only that, but they can dive deep into you. So my borderline would do this. We would sit after some really horrific scenario, and then, her hoovering me back, she would sit down and she would, because I'm pretty intuitive myself and I've been doing a lot of work, so I can tell when somebody's actually aware of their feelings. She would go deep and I would be so blown away at how deep she got with herself. And then she would get deep with me and she would go beyond my consciousness and she would bring out truths about my unconscious feelings and drives that just blew me away and made me feel so safe because, oh my God, this is the best therapist I've ever seen in my life. And she understands, oh my God, not only are we going to be okay now, but we've completely healed ourselves from all problems, and going from here on out, we're going to be like super beings flying through the air. And then it was incredibly confusing to find her doing the exact same thing, if not worse, days later. So this is therapy for most people, sitting on your ass and indulging in your unconscious feelings and impulses, and somehow, crying about it and verbalizing it will somehow heal it. It doesn't. All that is you're opening up the trapdoor and you're looking down at the monster and you're telling everybody how big the monster is and what clothes they're wearing. That's all that's happening there. Now, it doesn't mean that can't be a very healing part of the process, but in my experience, it has to be connected with a program of action. That's why DBT is so good. So, if you want to heal borderlines, this is what I've observed. You must want to heal for yourself, regular DBT therapy, regular group DBT therapy, and the daily DBT workbook exercises. That means every single night before going to bed. The one example I saw of a borderline who seemed, I don't know, I didn't follow it through, do a study on it, but from what I saw, and I bought into it at least for that point in time, that's what she was doing. She was going to DBT therapy with a therapist. She was then going to DBT group therapy, which means other people in there call each other on their bullshit, which is really important. And then doing regular workbooks. So sitting with the workbook and writing things out and examining and doing whatever that is. And I know that works because that's how the 12 steps work. And the 12 steps are absolutely the single most healing, therapeutic work, transformative work that there is for non-disordered people anyway. So if you're borderline and you want to be cured, regular DBT therapy, regular DBT group therapy, daily DBT workbook exercises. 8 to 10 years of dedicated, committed practice. So it's, the thing about BPD and other issues like addictions and other things, they don't go away. People in, for instance, Alcoholics Anonymous, people who've been in recovery for decades. The reason why they keep going back to meetings and they keep working the steps with their sponsor, why they keep sponsoring people, is they'll say, my disease is out in the parking lot doing push-ups. And you can be sober for 30, 40 years, and then one day it takes you back and people end up dead. People end up drinking themselves to death after 40 years. So BPD is the same. It's something that'll stay with you forever. And if you stop, if you give up and stop doing the work, it's going to come back and take you out. So if you don't understand that, if you don't understand that you'll never be free of that, and that you need to do the work to stay healed, if you don't understand that, then it's guaranteed, almost guaranteed, it's going to pull you back. That's what I've seen anyway. So that's why, you give it at least 8 to 10 years, because it takes that long to push back and give yourself enough space to be able to tolerate your impulses, tolerate other people's bullshit, and then be able to respond with true empathy, which isn't about having a feeling. It's about having a conscious understanding of what the other person, the kindest thing you can do for the other person, and taking that action regardless of your internal feelings, which is not what if you're a borderline and you want to convince me that you have empathy, that's not what empathy is for you. Empathy for you is having a squishy feeling. And you think if you have a squishy feeling that means something. And you give yourself some pat on the back because you have a loving feeling. Well, people who truly love, unlike your parents, who didn't love you when they were uncomfortable, when they were bored or full of self-hatred, or, your parents didn't love you when you needed it. And a parent is somebody that picks you up and hugs you and kisses your boo-boo and wipes your butt and changes your diaper even when they're feeling full of rage at you. They don't act on it. They act with love regardless of their feeling. So you can tell me till you're blue in the face that you have empathy and the narcissist doesn't. But if you don't know how to act consistently, if you act based on your impulses and you're abusive to other people and you don't have the ability to prevent that, at least in those instances, you don't have empathy. And then it doesn't matter if you have empathy the other 80% of the time. What else? Borderlines that's something else. We'll get to that. So I wanted to say something positive. Borderlines can heal. Perhaps they can even be cured if the spiritual transformation continues. But towards the bottom here, 8 to 10 years of dedicated, committed practice. So if you're trying to get your borderline into therapy and you think you can wait a decade for them, good luck. In that decade, if you are working on yourself, you're going to find out real quick that you weren't really as in love with her as you thought, and she didn't love you, and you're going to look for something more healthy. And she's going to figure out that you were a destructive codependent and that she didn't really love you and you didn't love her. She's going to figure that out. So in 8 to 10 years, it's guaranteed you guys probably aren't going to be together. If you do run into each other 10 years later and fall back in love, good for you. Then the stars are shining upon you. That's certainly a possibility. But I seriously doubt that you have if you're a codependent and you need a borderline to fix you, you're going to be back in another relationship, very quickly. Maybe, I don't know. In other words, you're not going to be able to wait 8 to 10 years. It's just not going to happen. Let's see, where are we? So partners should be in codependent recovery. So if you want to be with that borderline, you need to get your ass to, my current favorite is ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. Codependence Anonymous will work if you can find a sponsor. Also, adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional parents, that works really well. Adult children and PPG, you'll be able to find sponsors very quickly. CODA, for whatever reason, I don't care and I don't know, they just notorious for not sponsoring people very quickly. But you should be working the steps on your own codependence if you really want to have a healthy relationship. And I say that knowing that the majority of you won't do that. Prove me wrong. I dare you. All right, so there's that. All right, now let's get into it. Common BPD versus NPD myths. BPD is very different from NPD. No, it's not. I put a link in the description, and there is a timestamp. Let's see, what timestamp did I put on there? So I put a link in there, and the timestamp is 1:45, 1 minute and 45 seconds. So fast forward to 1 minute and 45 seconds. If you really think borderlines, if you think that BPD and NPD are two completely different things, this is from probably one of the most well-respected experts in the psychiatric field when it comes to narcissistic personality disorders. And you're going to hear, I'm not even going to quote it, you can hear it from him. So right off the bat, anybody who's going to tell you that BPD is very different from NPD, the only people who say that, by the way, the majority of people who say that are borderlines. You know why? Because people who've been on the other side of borderline abuse, they know from their personal experience that there's no difference. It's just a different expression of the same thing. In fact, well, we'll just get into it. Remember, I told you borderlines can be cured. Remember, I told you that going through what causes BPD is horrible. There is nobody that has more empathy than I do for what borderlines go through. However, if I truly love you, I'm not going to co-sign your need to minimize and deny the effects of your behavior. The kindest thing I can do for you is mirror back to you the truth. You can accept it or reject it. That's completely up to you. You can choose to beat yourself up and be full of guilt. I have no control over that. You can choose to project that onto me and say that I'm stigmatizing you and misinforming you and all that other. I can't do anything to stop you from doing that. But it's not going to stop me from telling you the truth. I have no anger towards you. I'm not looking to settle any scores. I honestly have nothing but love and compassion, especially for borderlines. In fact, if there was one mental illness that I could snap my fingers and get rid of without a second of hesitation, I would heal every single borderline on the planet. There's nothing worse. So you can say whatever you want about me, but I love you enough to tell you the truth. If you're not aware of the effects of your behavior, you will never be happy. It starts there. So if you can sit and listen to it, good for you. If not, plenty of other channels. Go enjoy them. So BPD number one, BPD is very different from NPD. Completely false. The core issue of what causes BPD and NPD is the exact same thing. We're going to talk about it later. What turns somebody into a borderline versus a typical narcissist is their reaction to the very same issue. That's why there's such a thing as BPD comorbid NPD, even though that's that's just repeating yourself. But the reason why people accept that that's a thing is because it's the same thing. We're talking about somebody who's responding from both responses of the same issue. It is true, some people are far more borderline and far more narcissist. But in terms of the cause of it, and what's most important, in terms of the horrific effects of it, I know because I've been on the other side of both narcissists and borderlines, the pain is identical. And the devaluation is identical. The fact that you wear different clothing, it expresses itself different, is meaningless. We'll get into some of the myths around that. So BPD is very different from NPD. Narcs have no empathy. BPDs are super empaths. Again, that's just not true. Narcissists aren't all psychopaths. In fact, some narcissists are full of empathy. Again, I know from personal experience. I've interacted with at least one person who had communal narcissistic tendencies, if he wasn't a full-on communal narcissist, and that he was the most compassionate person I've ever known. Now, you stay around with him long enough, you're going to find out not quick. It's going to take a long time. With him in particular, you're going to find out that he's projecting, he's taking hostages, and he's very damaging, extremely damaging, and he's feeding off of people. But in terms of his experience of himself, tears of empathy, going and serving and busting his rear end, volunteering, doing things. These are narcissists. And it's not that he's this psychopath who's pretending to be something he's not, which I know all you borderlines want to think that that's what a narcissist is. It's not how it works. So that's false right there. That borderlines are full of empathy and narcissists have no empathy. Just that narcissists have no empathy is false. Some of them don't. Some of them are full-on psychopaths. Not all of them are. And some of them are a mixture. The other one is borderlines are super empaths. Well, again, if you're so empathic, then why do you hurt people? Why do you split on people? Why do you devalue people? Why do you ghost them? Why do you discard them? Nobody who has empathy does that. And just because you have empathy, even if I accept your experience of your squishy feeling, that means that you have empathy. Even if that's true, the fact that you can't keep that means that you don't have true empathy, because true empathy doesn't go away when the impulses or the feelings are opposite of that. And I know if you're a borderline, you can't look me in the face and say that you don't operate from your impulses. That's why you have the excuse of, you don't understand, I only act out because I'm so afraid. Well, you have fear and you act out destructively. It means that in those instances you don't have empathy. So I don't give a crap about the psychological, superficial, nonsensical, intellectualized garbage of, well, there's functional empathy and then there's depicted empathy. This is all nonsense. Empathy is empathy, and it's not a feeling. If you have a squishy feeling, which we all want to have a squishy, loving feeling when we're playing with puppies, it feels good and we have empathy, oh, the poor puppy. But that isn't empathy. It's just a feeling. And in fact, as I said, psychopaths, murderous psychopaths, in fact, murderers can be in the process of murdering their victim and be full of empathy for them. So sometimes when somebody, all they're wrapped up in is their narcissistic, self-absorbed experience of their empathy, they can be doing you all kinds of harm because you're not there. It's a narcissistic experience. If you're a borderline, there's a good chance you may not know the difference yet. So here's the good news. You don't have to feel loving to do loving things. So if you hear that and you start going, oh my God, well, I'm a horrible person, you're not a horrible person. You can be completely, totally blank or be filled with homicidal rage. But if you act in ways that you know are going to be helpful and loving, you have empathy. So the good news is you don't have to have feelings all the time. Your actions have to reflect it. So stop worrying about whether or not you have a feeling. You're good because you have empathy and the narcissist is bad because they don't. Well, the assumption is that they do bad things because they don't have empathy. And psychologists are guilty of this erroneous assumption. That as long as somebody has empathy, they're more likely to act lovingly. Well, that's an assumption. I can tell you from personal experience, there are people that to this day come and tell me how much they love me and appreciate me because of something I did. And I can tell you in those moments I was not filled with empathy. And sometimes I was filled with the exact opposite feeling. But I knew if I was in their position, empathy, I wasn't feeling what they were feeling, that's sympathy. Empathy, I knew if I was in their position, I know what it would feel like. And so if I was in their position, here's the thing that would be the most helpful, healing thing. And I did that. They will tell you I'm a super loving, wonderful person. As far as they know, I was filled with empathy in the moment. Empathy is an action, it's not a feeling. So you're off the hook now. You don't have to be better than the narcissist because you're full of feelings. Feelings are just feelings, they're just reactions. The actions associated is what gives you your worth in terms of your behavior. Your worth comes just from existing. But in terms of people responding to you positively, they don't care. They don't care if you're a narcissist or a borderline, they only care how you treat them. So get out of this whole, I have empathy, therefore I'm not a narcissist. Who cares? I've said this before. Nobody cares about your diagnosis. You know, the assumption from the people who attack me that say, you're misinforming, you're stigmatizing, the assumption is that other people, you know, who don't know about this are going to stumble on my channel and they're going to hear me say this about borderlines and they're going to get this feeling about borderlines, and because I said something on a YouTube channel, it's going to make them hate borderlines. But the truth of the matter is that nobody cares. Nobody cares what your diagnosis is. The only thing that people care about is how you treat them. If you treat them with true empathy, which doesn't mean you have a feeling, it means that you act consciously in ways that are beneficial for them, people will love you. They won't care what your diagnosis is. I mean, all of the people on this channel have been damaged. They didn't care. The fact that their person they were with that had BPD more than likely gave them more empathy for them. And they wanted to do more, and they gave them more space, and they gave them more attention, more love. So, you know, if you really are worried about me giving out stigmatizing and false information, then I'm here to tell you, nobody gives a crap what I think. The people who are on this channel, the reason why they're here is because their experience reflects what I'm saying. If what I was saying was different from their experience, they'd say so. So you can get mad at me all you want and say that I, you know, turned them into whatever because I told the truth based on my experience. Or you can just accept the fact that people have if they have a bias against people with BPD, it's because they've experienced it. They've been on the other end of it. And they know how horrific it is. If you are able to act in ways that go against your diagnosis, people will love you. They won't care what your diagnosis is. So that's the good news. Narcs have no empathy. BPDs are super empaths. Narcs know what they are doing is evil. That is not always true. Yes, it's true with the psychopath, malignant narcissist who plans things out. Yes, that's true. But as I said, what's that word? The communal narcissist that I knew, he had no idea. He still to this day has no idea. And you could look him in the face and he would say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Everything I do, my entire life is based on loving other people. All I do is love and take care of others. That's my entire life. I'm completely focused on other people, right? So that is nonsense. Narcissists aren't these evil geniuses that know what they're doing all the time. Some are and some aren't, but some borderlines know exactly what they're doing. And many don't. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. That's true for both borderlines and narcissists. Why is that? Because it's the same fucking disease. It's just a different expression of the same disease. We'll get into that. So another myth, borderlines are ignorant of their hurtful behavior. That's only true some of the time. Sometimes they know exactly what they're doing. Borderlines are just frightened. That's why they act out. So the assumption is that if you take care of them, then everything will be okay. But it's more than that. It's much more than just being frightened. Much, much more. But that is a borderline who's not in recovery. That's the first thing they're going to say. I can't help it. You can't judge me. I'm just frightened. I was abused as an infant, and I'm just afraid you're going to hurt me. Don't take it personally. You got to be tough if you want to be with me. Not, I need to grow up and change my behavior so that other people won't be damaged. No, you have to change for me. Again, I'm still a tiny little infant and you have to meet my needs. So next one, borderlines just need you to provide emotional safety. They say that all the time. That's how you can tell, by the way. That's how you can tell. If they say to you and they convince you, look, all I need you to do is just make me feel safe, you should run. Their response should be, you know what, it's not your job to make me feel safe. I'm sorry that I put that on you. It's my job to be self-empowered. I'm going to do everything I can not to act out that way. Even then, whether they can follow through with it or not depends on their level how much work they put into themselves. So if you think a borderline comes and convinces you, all you need to do is make me feel safe. I'm just a cute little puppy and I'm frightened of all the loud noises. You just pet me and love me, it'll all be okay. I remember watching a video of a borderline, and she was trying to explain. I mean, it was mind-boggling to me. But she actually thought she was explaining something important, and she was saying, "You don't understand. Sometimes I need to have everything a certain way. And so I'm going to tell you to hold me this way and put your arm on me like this and then talk like this and say these words. And then if you do that, I'm going to be okay." And I was listening like, oh my God. Because it's not true. How do I know? Because I've done that. It doesn't work. Yeah, you did exactly what I said, but you didn't have the right feeling behind it. You had a look in your eye. The light was coming in the wrong direction. I mean, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. If somebody says that, run. You'll never be able to meet their needs, ever. If you are patient, loving, and consistent, borderlines will stay. They might believe that, but again, that's a sign of somebody who's untreated. If they say, if you're just patient with me, you just have to be patient and you just have to be strong and you just have to know this and you just have to make me feel safe. And if you do that, I promise I won't leave. Well, that's what they think, but it's not true. What they don't understand is that, unfortunately, they were severely damaged as infants and there's a mechanism that broke within them. And the truth is that when you give them the intimacy they so desperately crave, it's going to create it's not going to create the safety that they think and that they want. It's going to have the opposite effect. It's going to trigger their fear of being consumed. So they simultaneously have a fear of rejection, which is death, but they also have a simultaneous fear of intimacy, which is also death, which is true. That's why people fall in love. People fall in love because they have to surrender to the vulnerability of being rejected by somebody they're now completely giving themselves to. And that's why it's so painful when people get rejected romantically. So the borderline has that all the time, especially with their favorite person or, God forbid, a romantic interest. So the exact opposite is true. In fact, the reason why borderlines love narcissists is that narcissists are incapable of intimacy. So they never get to that point of feeling the fear of being consumed. They operate from their fear of rejection, which keeps them chasing after the narcissist forever and ever. We'll talk about that. But if you believe what they say, which is that if you're patient, loving, and consistent, they'll stay, it means that they are not aware of their mental illness, and you should run because they're going to destroy you. It doesn't mean they're lying. They may mean what they say, and this is what creates another thing that creates such incredible cognitive dissonance. Is that I know when somebody's telling me the truth. I absolutely know when somebody's emotionally connected and they're sincere and they're honest. And my borderline was dead serious and honest when she said those things to me, and I believed it. Not only did I believe it, it increased my empathy and compassion and love for her, which only made the pain even worse when she operated from her simultaneous fear of being consumed by the intimacy. So run when they say that. Because again, the healthy response isn't to put the onus on you. It's to say, you know what, I need to be okay with me. I need to understand that people might reject me and I'm still okay. I'm going to be here with you, and the closer we get, even though I want to run, I'm not going to. That would be at least that those words, if they meant it, would show some awareness. Even that doesn't guarantee anything either, because borderlines can be super self-aware and still have no ability to resist their impulses. Next myth, narcs plan out their evil schemes against you. Yes, some of them do. Not all of them. So again, the borderline wants to say, I don't mean to do what I do. I can't help it. I have these impulses and I can't stop myself. The narcissist, no, he knows what he's doing. First off, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change anything. Even if the narcissist knows they're planning to harm you and they harm you, it's going to hurt exactly the same, if not worse, from somebody who doesn't realize they're planning on destroying you. When you turn around and destroy them in the exact same narcissistic way that a narcissist would, it has the exact same impact. So even if you're right and they know what they're doing, but you can't help it, it doesn't change the fact that it hurts exactly the same and has the same devaluation. But the truth of the matter is it's even worse. This is why so many people who've been with borderlines afterwards want to call them. They want to say they knew what they were doing. They planned it out. I hate her for that. And I say, no, she didn't plan it out. She loved you. She wanted you to take care of her. She really felt you were the one, and she really wanted to be the perfect partner for you. She's got a mental illness that puts her in a position that when the intimacy hits, she flips out and acts, psychopathically. She can't help it. They know it. That's denial. That's the person who's been abused is in denial. So if you're conflating me with those people, don't do it, because I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those people that says that borderlines are evil narcissists that plan it out and know what they're doing. I know that's not the case. The tragic part of it all is that they don't intend on hurting you most of the time. They really want to love you, and they really want you to love them. They're broken. They've been really damaged. They have a mental illness. They have a self-defense mechanism that is completely, totally, way out of range of normal functioning. And they're destroying people in the attempt of saving themselves. So to say that I'm conflating is not true. If I were conflating, then I would be telling you. Borderlines know exactly what they're doing. They're planning it out. They're exactly like evil, psychopathic, malignant narcissists, and I'm not saying that. I am saying that BPD and NPD are the same thing. They're just two different expressions. But just as a narcissist, there are all different kinds of narcissists that are filled with compassion, that don't plan on hurting you, and all of that, as well as ones that do plan on it. It's just different ways of responding to the same defense mechanism. We'll get into the real specifics later. Another myth. NPD is a mental illness. BPD is just a disorder. I can't believe somebody said this in a comment. And I said something about, borderlines have a mental illness. And the person says, so much for what you know. No, NPD is a mental illness, but BPD is a personality disorder. You just said a personality disorder is a personality disorder. A mental illness is a mental illness. A personality disorder is a mental illness. But again, it's understandable. People with BPD, people with NPD don't go looking for channels like this. So if you say you have a mental illness, they'll be like, no, I don't. Borderlines know. They know that they might be self-aware to know that they suffer from a personality disorder. They might even know that they have BPD, but they need to deny it, so they'll turn it into something it's not. Oh, it's just a personality disorder. No, it's a mental illness. Mental illness doesn't mean that you're a horrible person. The reason why that's important is because people with a mental illness don't have the same capacity to be self-aware and self-regulating. That's what's important. It has nothing to do with being good or bad. And why it's important on this channel is because codependents, people who aren't disordered but are in a state of neurosis, who are trying to convince themselves that this person can love them and that this person is rational. They need to understand that BPD is a mental illness, that you're dealing with people who have a mental dysfunction at a level that prevents them from being able to be loving romantic partners. If they didn't have that dysfunction, they would either be in recovery and or they wouldn't be a borderline. So if you want to tell me that you're with a borderline, but it's okay because I'm going to take care of them or they know what they're doing, then you don't understand the mental illness. And more than likely they don't either. And that's a tragedy. It's very sad. So again, the whole point of this channel is to get you into recovery. If you're a borderline, whenever I say do the one thing, you don't have to go to ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. Go and get yourself into DBT therapy. You're borderline and you want to be healthy, get yourself into therapy. Do DBT group therapy, the workbook on a daily basis. Just do everything you possibly can to become self-aware and learn how to change your behavior. You can't do that if you're not in a program of action. So stop sitting there and complaining about it. Stop blaming me and attacking me. It's not going to help you. Go do the work. Nothing's going to change if you don't do the work. The good news is if you do the work, you can have everything you want. Let's see. NPD is incurable. BPD can be cured. That is, like I said earlier, that's technically a falsehood. There's no such thing as, because it's the same thing. You can't cure yourself of that. The best you can do in this current reality is to learn how to change your actions, is to learn how not to act on your impulses, to learn how not to let your symptoms control you. Again, it's as simple as acting in a way that you consciously know is the most loving, constructive thing to do for the other person, regardless of how you feel. If you feel loving, great, makes it that much easier. You feel homicidal, you can still act contrary to that impulse and do what is necessary, and the other person won't care. In fact, they might love you even more, because if they know that you're in pain and you're acting with love anyway, trust me, they will love you even more for that. So get out of this idea. It's a childish, superficial generalization that good people have good feelings, bad people have bad feelings. You got punished for all of your feelings as an infant. I'm sorry that happened to you. Loving, mature adults won't do that. They'll accept you no matter what your feelings, as long as you treat them with respect and with kindness and with true empathy, which is an action, not a feeling. Let's see. Anyone who points out BPD behavior is stigmatizing. I already talked about that. All right, now let's get even deeper. BPD and NPD are two sides of the same coin. All right, so this is based on my observation as well as my study. Again, I don't need to agree with all of the psychologists. I don't. And the reason for that is because my personal experience oftentimes is completely opposite to them. The other thing is that, what's gone on the past 3 or 4 years with the pandemic hasn't told you that the scientific community isn't full of crap at least part of the time, then the same thing is at least as true in a science that is as flimsy as psychology. So psychology keeps trying to figure itself out. So personal experience is huge. What I can give you expertise on is in recovery. I've been in recovery for over 40 years. I have been in therapy. I was in therapy for over 30 years. I have experienced my own recovery as well as watched other people recover in different various things. So when I compare that reality to a lot of what is said and written about in the so-called science of psychology, I'm going to call out bullshit when I see it. And it doesn't matter to me that they have a bunch of letters on the outside of their name. It doesn't mean, number one, that they're healthy, and if they are healthy, it doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about. Again, I talked about the two psychologists who were talking about what they would do if a borderline split on them, and I'm like, yeah, go try that. Tell us how that works. You haven't the experience, you don't know the first thing you're talking about. So I know what I'm talking about. What I talk about because of understanding, personal experience, some research, some agreement with some of the science of psychology, and some because of my direct experience with it. So, NPD and BPD, and psychology agrees with me. Again, click the link below. Comes from the same root. What I've seen is that, again, BPD and NPD are diagnoses, they're phrases. The fact that there is such a thing as BPD comorbid NPD proves to you they're the same thing. And it means that some people are going to express one side over the other. And some people are going to have expressions of both, of the same disease. BPD and NPD are two different reactions to the same core mental issue, mental illness. It's a self-defense mechanism. There are two ways of operating and trying to defend yourself against an unsurvivable attack on the identity. It's just horrific. It's just a desperate attempt to survive, an infantile self-preservation mechanism. It's horrific. But there's two main ways that they respond. They can be anywhere on that spectrum. So BPD and NPD are two sides of a spectrum. Got it? All right, so narcissists retreat into an internalized fantasy world. So their response to their feeling unlovable and unworthy and they're about to die, they don't deserve to live, their fear of being killed at any moment. As an infant, in order to survive that, they created an internal fantasy world where they were perfect, where they were God. And in their fantasy world, they were worshipped. And again, it's an infantile understanding, because in an infant's mind, there's God and then there's sinful people. That's why religion was created that way. It's an infantile way of controlling you. So in their mind, they want to be perfect. So to be lovable means to be God. So they create themselves as, maybe not literally Jehovah, but a godlike figure. And then everybody around them sees their perfection and worships them. That creates a feeling of safety for them. No intimacy whatsoever, but it gives them a feeling of safety. So they internalize that. That is their defense mechanism response to the fact that their ego doesn't exist. BPDs, on the other hand, externalize their infantile fantasy world. So they have the same response. They create a perfect fantasy world. But their fantasy world is the flip side. In their fantasy world, you are God and they are the perfect worshiper. So in each case, they're looking to be regulated and accepted and loved because of their perfection. So they're both grandiose. The narcissist has an internal grandiosity, I'm perfect, worship me. The borderline has a grandiosity of I'm perfect, God loves me. It's the same thing. Now we'll get into the masculine versus the feminine. So it is true that nowadays, especially, borderlines can be both male or female. Narcissists can be both masculine and feminine. We could get into the societal reasons for that, but I'm not going to do that. So it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about gender. So when I say masculine or feminine, I'm talking about a quality. You can be a fully heterosexual man and still be very feminine in your response. You can be a bodybuilder and be very feminine in your response. So the feminine response is to be the perfect, submissive receiver of the perfect love of God, and I'm the most beautiful angel. I'm perfect, and that's why God takes me to heaven and loves me. It's a feminine response. That's why I call borderline she. The masculine response is to be, I'm God, you worship me. So the grandiose narcissist is a masculine expression. So it's an expression of the same fantasy. Got it? That's why they're the same thing. So BPDs externalize their infantile fantasy world. Narcissists insert people into their internal fantasy. So narcissists live in this internal fantasy. They go out into the world. They don't feel comfortable. It's not their... It doesn't matter how successful they are. Their success is a defense mechanism as well. They're out there in the external world. They have this internal fantasy. They're looking for actors They're not looking for people. They don't go, I wonder what that person is like. I'd really like to get to know them. They go, I have a role inside of me for the worshiper A. Okay, you. Yeah, you look the part. Let's see. Okay, try this. Say this. And this is, they train you. That's why they're constantly saying, you're doing it wrong. You're not doing it right. Do it this way. Say this. Do that. Act this way. Their control is about getting you to be that character. And then they, as Vaknin says, they take a snapshot of you. I think he says that. And then they import that file into their internal fantasy. And you, the actual person, you're meaningless. You're just a stick figure. So that's why the codependent of the narcissist is constantly trying to be what they want. Because to be accepted by them means you got to do what they want. Put them inside their fantasy, their internal fantasy world. Borderlines export their fantasy onto external reality. What that means is that they have this fantasy, they externalize it, and so the world is a stage, and there's going to be this production. The production of them being the perfect worshiper where God accepts them and loves them. Now, you are God A. You're walking around on the street. You're walking on their stage. You, that guy. Oh, that guy'd be perfect. Oh, I can see how perfect he is. They cast you as the role of being the perfect God. They idealize you. Everything you do. I was, at the time I was with my borderline, I was in my late 50s. And she in her early mid-30s, so she was a little younger than me, and I've got gray hair. I exercise. I'm athletic, but I've got a little bit of a paunch on me. Whatever it was about me was perfect. My physical stature, as well as my gray hair. A little bit of wrinkle there gives me some maturity, and and you're not like one of those perfect chiseled guys. You got a little bit of paunch, but you're big and strong and you can take anybody. So no matter what it was about me, it was perfect. It means it wasn't perfect. It was just, in her mind, she whitewashes everything. So she's fixing the lights and fixing the makeup and the sound, and you're the actor that's been cast in it, and now we're going to put you in the makeup chair and we're going to make you look perfect for the camera. That's them idealizing you. So what you don't understand about being idealized, it feels amazing, except it's a lie. And it's also, you're being devalued and you're being objectified. That's why healthy people, when they're idealized, get creeped out. They go, this is happening way too fast. You don't even know me yet. But you, being the good codependent that you are, you went, that's right, I am perfect. Finally, somebody sees me for who I am. Oh my God, I'm finally loved, which is about mommy. Mommy idealizes their little baby. You're the perfect little baby. And the borderline is idealizing you as the perfect God, and you misunderstand what's happening, and you think she's mothering you. She's not. She's parentifying you. And you don't realize you're being objectified. You're an object in her play. If you don't say your lines right, if you don't hit the right mark, if the light doesn't hit you just the right way, and if you don't give her a feeling, because that's what she wants. That's why borderlines talk about feelings all the time. Narcissists, try to desensitize themselves from it. Borderlines try to regulate themselves with emotion. So they're in a play, and you have to make them cry. And if you don't play your part right, they're going to get real upset. I hesitate saying this because it's, but I was having intimacy with my borderline, and I was servicing her. Use your imagination. And she was getting visibly angry with me. She was like, don't do it like that. Use your energy. I'm a spiritual practitioner. You're a shaman. Use your energy. She said, F me with your energy. So it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how well I was servicing her. It didn't matter what I was doing. It didn't matter what level of skill or attention. None of that mattered. I had to be supercharged with jolts of lightning coming out of me supernaturally, or it wasn't good enough. And she was full of rage. You're not doing it right. She wanted to have the fantasy where Zeus was coming out of the sky and mating with the mortal woman. That was her fantasy, and she was dead serious about it. And so that's an example of what really is going on when they're idealizing you. They are objectifying you as you're just an actor in their play. But unlike the narcissist, where the play is internal, their play is external. And unlike the narcissist, who is the God being worshipped, you are the God that is pouring all of your godlike power onto their perfect worship of you. All right, so BPDs, narcs insert people into their fantasy. BPDs export their fantasy onto external reality. Narcs seek to find perfect worshipers of them. BPDs seek perfect gods to worship. Borderlines devour and leave empty corpses. So borderlines discard. Narcs, on the other hand, narcs take hostages and create zombies. So this is one of the differences between the two. Again, it's the same basic thing, but it's different expressions of it. So borderlines, they, after they idealize you and you disappoint them, they will discard you. They're going to come back, though. They're going to come back because they need to be regulated. So you'll never be a god to them again. You'll never be the perfect, there might be little bits of, on the scale of, you'll never have that level of idealization that you did the first time around. It's just like an addict. An addict goes, and the first time they do coke, it's the amazing thing. And then every time they do coke after that, it's trying to get that initial high, and they never do, and it just gets worse. And you get frustrated, and this is what's going to happen with her. You were the perfect drug at first, and then you disappointed them, and then they'll come back, and maybe if I try it again, and you're never going to be as good. So you're going to get discarded sooner, you're going to get devalued sooner. The level of time between the idealization and the discard becomes shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And then it just becomes abusive. You're running around trying to be the perfect drug for them, and they just keep abusing you and discarding you and throwing you away. So eventually what ends up happening is there will come a final discard. And they will stop hoovering you, and they will throw you away, but only after they have fed off of, they've broken the bones open and sucked out the marrow, and there's nothing left. So they leave you by the side of the road. You're a broken corpse. There's nothing left. They're going to keep the memory of you. They're going to talk about you to their next boyfriend or girlfriend. So it's not that they've forgotten you. It's not that they've forgotten the abuse they've done to you and what they got out of it. They'll still replay all that stuff. But in terms of you physically being a part of them, that's never going to happen again. In some cases, they can destroy you so badly. This is why, those of you, you're new in your borderline relationship, it's only been a few months or maybe a couple of years, you have no idea what's coming for you. In the end, when they discard you, it doesn't happen all the time. Mine didn't. But I also went full no contact, and I'm kind of the last person you want to try that shit with. But when I realized that I was being discarded and the level of it, I made it impossible for her to hoover me back. She made it impossible for her to ever find me or contact me ever again. But for those of you that don't do that and you stay with them, At some point, the final discard will come, and it could be decades later. There are people that have been on this channel that I've communicated with who were with borderlines, married, had kids with them, houses. 30 years later, the final discard comes out of nowhere, and they devastate and destroy them on every level. Take everything that they have, destroy their career, destroy their business, destroy their relationships, and get them thrown into jail. And it comes literally out of nowhere. And it's because that person has gotten everything they can out of you and there's nothing more. And then they must destroy you. This is a projection. The reason why they're so afraid of being loved and so afraid of being consumed is because that's what they're going to do to you. It's a projection. It's what they believe they deserve. They're going to do to you what they believe they should be done to them. So this is why it's so deceptive. Borderlines are so frighteningly deceptive. You think you're going to be okay. You know, I've had people interact with me, and I've been with my borderline girlfriend and things are great and you're overdoing it. Like, you know, come talk to us in 5 or 10 years. We can wait. Let us know how that worked out for you. And again, this is if you don't get into therapy. If you get into therapy, this could all change. Where are we? Where am I at? Where am I? I am here. All right. So borderlines devour and leave empty corpses there in the middle by your neckline. And then narcs take hostages and create zombies. So they're doing the same thing, right? Different ways of doing it. Borderlines devour you, suck out the marrow, and then leave the broken, empty shell of a body by the side of the road and never come back for it. Narcissists, on the other hand, they take hostages. Now, I'm not saying that narcissists don't devalue and destroy and ghost and discard. They do. Generally speaking, and again, I know from personal experience. But narcissists, what they do is they in this, you can see this in cult leaders. You know, the NXIVM cult. Pick any cult leader you want. Once you're in, you never get out. You never get out. They will, you know, like if you know, they'll love bomb you to get you into the cult. They may even marry you, have kids with you. But then once they've gotten you there, you get relegated to the back of the bus. And you have to be there for them, do everything that they want. You have to completely give your life over to them. But in terms of them giving anything to you, it won't happen. You're just going to be part of their cult. Again, they're looking to be worshipped. They're a god looking to be worshipped. But you know, once they get you in, then they're gonna toss you in the back. And so what they're going to do is they're going to devalue you and objectify you and feed off of you. But in the case of the narc, when there's nothing left of you to be consumed, instead of cracking open the bones and sucking out the marrow and then throwing your remains on the side of the road, they will turn you into a zombie. There will be nothing left of you. You won't be home. You will just be an automaton, and you will just be part of them. And they will love to look at it. You know, like, you know, serial killers, you know, they go back to the scene of the crime. They have, you know, body parts that they look at. You'll be part of that. They will you will be the trophy. They'll be able to look at you and get some supply just by knowing that you're there. They're not going to have anything to do with you. You know, like in, what is that cult that, you know, the big one, I forget what it's called, Scientology, right? In Scientology, there's that place where people are kept prisoner for no reason, for years. And, the head of the cult never goes there, but he knows that they're there. He punishes them, and then they come out and do whatever they're told, and then they're thrown back in the prison. They're zombies. They never get rid of you. They might even keep you alive. They give you just enough to keep you alive, but they'll never get rid of you. But you will be an empty shell. You'll just be a zombie. So borderlines throw your carcass by the side of the road. Narcissists keep you as a zombie. But it's the same thing. They completely take away your soul and feed off of you. The only people who can destroy narcs are BPDs. This is very interesting. So again, the reason why borderlines also repeatedly complain about the narcissists that have destroyed them. They're very attracted to narcissists, and I don't doubt that they've been horrifically abused by narcissist parents as well as loved ones. And narcissist romantic partners. I don't disbelieve any of that. It doesn't change the fact that they're attracted to them. They're attracted to narcissists because narcissists don't have the ability to give out any real empathy. So that prevents the borderline from, completely splitting on them, because if you don't give them the empathy the intimacy that they so desperately crave, then they don't go through the fear of consumption, and then they don't discard you. So they stay with you. Now, this works out well for the narcissist. They've got a worshiper that's constantly chasing after them, constantly idealizing them. They can't live without that. The average person doesn't have the ability to idealize them to that level. So that's why the average person is just, fed off of and then turned into a zombie. The borderline, on the other hand, the borderline will continue to keep idealizing and molding themselves in order to be the perfect worshiper. But they have a long game that they're playing. The long game that they're playing, which is their unconscious desire to get revenge on their parents. The long game that they're playing is, once I get this narcissist to be attached to me, when I become indispensable to their ego because I'm the perfect worshiper, meaning I will put up with more abuse than any of them and still keep coming back. They can do anything and everything and it won't break me. And they won't lose me, and I will still worship them, and I will give them so much supply that they won't be able to live without me. Then what's going to happen is the narcissist, their firewall is going to begin to crack, and they're going to start to give out some intimacy. I know this because my borderline ex shared with me her past with her narcissist boyfriend, and so I know she explained it, and afterwards I went, oh my God. She thought she was complaining about what this guy did to her. And after I listened to all of it, I said, oh my God, you destroyed him. You just pulled him into this, and then you just destroyed him. And I can't remember what her response to that was, but I became more, I had a moment of, oh my God, who the hell am I with? But I was so codependent. I wanted her to be that way with me, and she wasn't. I'm not a narcissist, so I was giving her intimacy, so she didn't have the need to chase after me and deify me in the ways that she did him. But the end result was that she destroyed him, and she relished it. So she played the long con with him until he started to break and started to actually give her some intimacy. And the moment that happened, she destroyed him. And she relished it. And then she discarded him. So the only people in my experience that can destroy a narcissist is a borderline. So again, you want to say there's a difference between BPD and NPD, that borderlines are full of love and they have empathy and they're not like narcissists, they're not as bad as narcissists. Well, they're the only ones that have enough narcissistic psychopathy to destroy a true narcissist. Only borderlines can do that. Not all narcissists are psychopaths. So when I say that borderlines are narcissists, borderlines get upset. I am not a malignant psychopath. Well, not all narcissists are psychopaths, but all borderlines are secondary psychopaths. Huh? So it works against you, borderlines. You want to say you're different? I agree. By definition, you are a secondary psychopath. So when you split, when you discard, when you devalue, out of your fear of being consumed, the self-protection mechanism, your fear of being hurt and abandoned, the self-protection mechanism is that psychopath. Now, a psychopath doesn't mean that you're screaming, running after somebody with a knife, although that does happen. A psychopath is somebody who locks themselves in their bedroom and closes the door. That my quiet borderline would do that. She'd just disappear. She would disappear and just climb in bed for days at a time. Wouldn't let anybody come see her. It wouldn't matter how many times I called. If I came over, wouldn't matter. That is psychopathy. That is abuse, and that is rageful acting out against somebody. You can say the truth, which is you're in a lot of pain and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're feeling suicidal. All those things are true. But to consciously ghost somebody, it's the same as discarding them, has the exact same feeling. Just because you come and say, I didn't discard you, I'm so depressed and I have so much anxiety, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's still psychopathy. So psychopathy is acting out ruthlessly and cruelly against people that don't deserve it, and relishing and enjoying it. I've heard, again, borderlines will dissociate. Not all narcissists dissociate. Borderlines dissociate. Again, I've heard it not only from my borderline ex, but other borderlines will say that they will see themselves attacking their lover, saying horrible things, doing horrible things, but it will be like it's not them. They're watching somebody else do it. That's called dissociation. That's a sign of psychopathy. That's a sign of psychosis. So borderlines are also, sometimes they are diagnosed as having multiple personalities, dissociative identity disorder. In fact, some people think that borderline personality disorder is a form of multiple personality disorder. And that's not the case with all narcissists. So again, you want to say you're different from a narcissist? You're not making a good argument for yourself. Because some of the things that make you different are this dissociation. Now, narcissists can also dissociate. But if you're a borderline, there's a very good chance you dissociate. And by definition, you are a secondary psychopath. That when you split and when you devalue, when you discard, you do it ruthlessly and cruelly. Whether you're screaming at them and throwing knives at them and slashing their tires, or whether you are ghosting them and disappearing, whether you are monkey branching and cheating on them with somebody else, it is still psychopathic. And it is when you are afraid of the intimacy. So borderlines are secondary psychopaths. That doesn't make you a bad person. That is just your form of narcissism. That is how your damaged identity has sought to defend itself. Again, I believe very strongly that borderlines can heal. At the very least, they can recover. And if you go and take the therapy, my understanding, maybe there are others, DBT therapy, DBT group therapy, and the DBT daily workshop exercises, if you do that every day consistently, I believe that you can choose to act contrary to all of these impulses. Because the bottom line is all of these actions are behavioral responses. The difference between somebody who doesn't have empathy and is hurtful, and somebody who has empathy and is loving, isn't about what they feel. It's about the actions that they take. And if you make the decision that you're going to do whatever is possible and you're going to do whatever work is necessary to be able to learn how to tolerate all of those intolerable feelings and impulses and act in ways that are loving and kind, you can have any relationship you want. It's the only thing that matters. It's great if you have the feelings, but I would much rather be with somebody who could look me in the face and say, I'm feeling homicidally rageful towards you, and then turn around and act in a loving way. I would marry that person. People who worship me and idealize me, pretty good chance they're going to tear me a new one. It's going to feel good for who knows how long, and then my ass is going to get handed to me with a smile on their face. So it's not about what you feel, it's about what you do. If you can't control your actions, that's okay. There are ways that you can learn how to do that. DBT therapy is one. Now, what about if you're in a relationship with a borderline? The only way for partners of a BPD, NPD to heal, realize that your personality disordered partner can never love you. It's never going to happen. If you can't come to that realization, I can't help you. You must go full no contact if you truly love them. You say, I really love them, I can't go no contact. That means you don't love them. It means you're selfish, you're narcissistic. So if you truly love somebody, you know that they have a personality disorder. Number one, they can't love you. Number two, you're toxic to them because you're their drug. And so the kindest thing you can do is take yourself out of the equation. So you say, I love you very much. Here, watch this video, learn how to, go get DBT therapy. I wish you all the best. I can't be in this relationship. It's too painful for me. And then you have to cut off all contact. Because until, just trust me, that's what you got to do. Cutting off all contact means not just that you don't call them. It means that you block them, your phone, Facebook, email, any way for them to contact you. You make it impossible for them to contact you. What's that? They know where you live? Well, then sell your house and move. If you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to do whatever it takes. So there's no excuse you can tell me. I don't understand, I just bought this house. Well, you can sell it. Well, take a loss. Well, do you want to lose a few dollars, or do you want to end up having your corpse thrown on the side of a road? Because that's what's coming next. You have to completely, totally go no contact. They'll be okay. If they off themselves because you won't be with them, that's their choice. They can go get therapy. They can go get help. There's no shortage of places where they can go and get help. There's plenty of other people they can monkey branch onto. If they decide to off themselves, that, again, is their choice, not yours. So you have to go no contact. Complete, full no contact, meaning it's impossible for them to contact you ever again. Work all 12 steps with a sponsor and repeat. That means you go to ppgrecoveredcodependence.org or Codependence Anonymous, or if you've got other addictions, Alcoholics Anonymous, Codependence, Al-Anon, I don't care. Go to one of the 12-step groups and work all the 12 steps. And when you get to step 4, you do step 4 about your borderline X. And then when you've worked all 12 of those steps with a sponsor, you then sponsor somebody else. That is a guaranteed, I'm going to say that is a guaranteed path of recovery. Not only will you recover, the pain that you're feeling will go away. Not only will the pain go away, but you will never even need to think about them ever again. The only reason I keep this channel going is because people are responding to it and it's helping people. If it wasn't, I wouldn't put any time into it. I don't have any need to relive this. I'm just here to help. So Work all 12 steps with the sponsor and repeat. Therapy alone cannot cure your codependence. We already talked about that. So, it doesn't amaze me. I understand, but I've been doing this channel for a long time. I tell people what to do to heal, and they go get a therapist. Now, in the beginning, I used to say the 4 things were, to work the 12 steps, go no contact, get a therapist. I don't know what else I said. But people would do everything except for the one that was most important, which was to work the 12 steps. So now I turned it into, it was recently, the one thing that heals BPD and NPD abuse was the name of this channel. And it was go work the 12 steps. You can read it in my book if you want. The cure for this is to work the 12 steps with a sponsor. Not read it on the wall and say, yeah, I looked at the steps, I worked them, and I already do step 4 all the time because I'm always self-examining, and that's not what a 4th step is. So you got to work all 12 steps with a sponsor, and then you got to sponsor somebody else, and I guarantee you complete healing from this relationship wound. Guaranteed. Go prove me wrong, I dare you. However, if you don't follow that advice, your untreated codependence is lethal and terminal. That means you don't ever have to see your borderline or narcissist ever again, and you'll still die. I can tell you people who their untreated codependence gave them cancer, gave them all kinds of other physical problems, fibromyalgia, arthritis, depression, insomnia. It'll kill you. It's just as lethal as anything else. Just because you're not in the relationship with them doesn't mean anything. And getting another relationship isn't going to fix you. There was a guy that used to come on the channel and he would ask me the same question. So I haven't been with my borderline for 4 years now, but I still wake up in the middle of the night and I still think about them. And I said, what do you mean? You're obviously still connected to them. No, I'm not. I've married somebody else. Well, it didn't work. I said, the only cure is to work the 12 steps. No, I don't need to do that. So tell me how, and I'm like, you don't want to take my advice, don't take my advice. There's only one way out of this. Work the 12 steps with a sponsor somebody else. If you don't, this will stay with you for the rest of your life. You've been infected. You've been infected with an introject that will never go away. You will always be in an interrupted state of, what is that called? What do they call that? A trauma bond. You'll be in an interrupted state of a trauma bond. I forget what they do. Anyway, unfortunately the phrases slipped my mind, but you will be in a state where that trauma bond hamster wheel will be interrupted, which means that they discarded you. They're out of your life. You're full of rage. Now that you realize they're never coming back, you're now full of rage. In the beginning when they leave, you still love them and I hope they get better and I just want them to be happy. And then you realize they're never coming back. And then that turns into rage of, oh my God, they did this to me. They knew what they were doing. They're evil. They're horrible. I am not codependent. I hate their guts. I never want to see them again. That means that you love them. You can't hate somebody if you don't love them. It's impossible. Hate and love are two sides of the same coin. True freedom is when you're apathetic, meaning you don't have a feeling one way or another about them. I'm completely apathetic about my borderline ex. I have as much love for her as I do for anybody else. I honestly want her to be happy. I don't know if she's alive or dead. I don't care. If she's alive, I hope she's found some recovery. If not, big deal. It's not my problem. I don't hate her. I don't resent her. I don't regret any of it. I am healed from that relationship. If you're still full of rage and you think that your rage means that you're not a codependent, you're now the zombie. You're that dead body on the side of the road that's crying out in pain. You're not healed. You're absolutely, just because you've been locked up in a room all by yourself doesn't mean that you're not codependent. Codependence is something altogether different. So I'm here to tell you there's no way out of this. The pain that you feel, the infection that's gotten into you as a result of being in this relationship will stay with you for the rest of your life if you don't heal it. Maybe the symptoms will go down, but they'll come down and come up. I know, I've talked to people who've been in it for 30 years, they still can't stop thinking about their borderline ex. So if you want to be cured, you got to do the work, and that's to work the 12 steps with a sponsor and sponsor somebody else. And you've got nothing to lose because it doesn't cost you anything. It will only help you. So if you don't do it, you can't tell me that it wouldn't work or it doesn't work because you haven't done it. And don't tell me I went to a few meetings and I didn't like the meetings. I didn't say go to meetings. I said work the steps. I didn't say go and like the organization. I didn't like those people. They're all screwed up. Of course they are. Hospitals are filled with sick people. 12-step groups are filled with screwed up people. You're not going there for that. You're going there to take the medicine. So stop giving me bullshit excuses and work the steps and heal. Or don't and be miserable, perhaps for the rest of your life. Perhaps it might kill you. Again, my job is just to tell you the truth. You don't have to like it. But I guarantee you, you've got nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose. The worst thing that will happen to you is if you work all 12 steps with a sponsor and sponsor somebody else. The worst thing that will happen is that your life will get better. There's no downside to it. It doesn't cost you anything. You can do it from home. You can do it completely virtually online. So don't give me any excuses. You either do it or you don't. And that's completely up to you. That's it, my friends. I wish you all the best. I know I'm gonna get a bunch of weird comments from people who aren't paying attention. So be it. That's it. I love you all. I wish you all the best. Those of you, if you'd like to, again, I am inviting everybody to come to, again, we're doing one today. This is Wednesday. Live guided interdimensional meditations every Wednesday and Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also just go to the Thunder Wizard YouTube channel, YouTube at Thunder Wizard, and you can go to the live tab, and there's tons of pre-recorded live guided meditations. They're very powerful and very healing. Borderline, narcissist, codependent, been huge amounts of healings as a result of that. Again, this world is going through a dynamic spiritual transformation. I invite you to be a part of it. That's it. I love you all. I wish you all the best. I will see you all very soon.